and soul by soul, to all the world, to every nation, one by one and soul by soul, to all the world, to every nation, one by one and soul by soul, to all the world.
Welcome to the 42nd edition of KNN. Son and I are here at the historic Raleigh Studios in Hollywood, California, to bring you the best news you'll ever see.
We have some incredible stories of how God's grace is working in the lives of disciples all around the world.
For many of us who are older Christians, we've been asking ourselves the question, where is God leading His kingdom? Where do we go from here? As always, we'll find the answers in the Bible and in our search for God's purposes. The Apostle Paul said different things like, I want to know Christ, forgetting what's behind and straining toward what's ahead. Only let us live up to what we've already attained. We always need to remember God, and that He is the one that has allowed us to see what we see, hear what we hear, and experience a brand new Christian life. This edition of KNN is dedicated in highlighting the basics of Christianity, the heart of being a disciple. We need to always go back to the basics.
The Bible says the harvest is plentiful. People are looking for God. Kicking off our new segment, Freeze Frame, are people who are seeking God with all their hearts.
I left work that day feeling so tired and frustrated. My life was going fine professionally, but I felt a deep emptiness in my heart, and I didn't know why. So I figured if I went to church and I just sat there, I would feel closer to God. So I stopped at every church I could find on the way to catch my train home. But at every church I tried, the doors were locked. I even saw a minister sitting at a window, and I waited to get his attention, but he just ignored me. By the time I got to Grand Central Station, I was just so depressed. I sat down at a table feeling that there was no way I could feel close to God. Right then, two sisters from the New York City church who were sitting at a nearby table approached me and asked me if I wanted to be part of a Bible study group. I couldn't believe it. I thought that maybe they were from the TV show Candy Camera and had seen me knocking on doors out on the street. Then I thought that maybe God had sent down two angels. We talked for about an hour, and a few days later, I started to study the Bible. Several weeks later, I was baptized. I am so grateful to God for answering my prayers so quickly, and to the sisters who were courageous enough to reach out to me.
Stage 6 here at Raleigh Studios is operated by a disciple named Keith Stevenson. This stage has been home to many famous shows such as America's Funniest Home Videos.
Stage 3 at Raleigh Studios is one of the oldest stages in Hollywood. And Stage 9 is where we filmed the earthquakes in the KNN production, Last Call.
Did you know that the International Churches of Christ have their first television show? What's amazing is that this show is located in Jakarta, Indonesia, the world's largest Muslim nation. The show is called Everyone Needs a Turning Point. It's written, directed, produced, and hosted by disciples and puts a true Christian perspective on issues like premarital sex, drug usage, and most importantly, the cross of Jesus Christ.
4 new books have been published by disciples. It is the first title of the brand new Joburg Press in Johannesburg, South Africa. Mike's heart is to make materials affordable for third world disciples. This short book is available for only $2. Over 30,000 copies in 6 languages were sold in the first 2 months. DPI recently released 3 new books. Elders of the Boston Church of Christ, Gordon Ferguson and Wyndham Shaw, wrote Golden Rule Leadership. This provocative book challenges us to develop team leadership in our churches by leading others as we would have them lead us. Profession of Faith is a book for Christian professionals edited by John Bringardner and Randy Jordan. Each chapter is written by a disciple who has excelled in his or her professional field. DPI has also just published its first fiction book, A Sword for the Emerald King. Author Fred Fowler became a disciple in the Boston Church 22 years ago. Sales were enthusiastic at a Barnes & Noble bookstore signing in Boston for Fred. Get more information and order these books from the DPI website, www.dpibooks.org, or just find them on Upside or Down, www.ucd.net.
We are all inspired by people who overcome their fears to do great things. In fact, that is the premise of a very popular television show called Fear Factor. Patricia Crawford, a disciple from the Atlanta church, not only won the competition on her segment of the show, but she placed in the top 4 of the championship for the entire season. Here's what she did to win her part of the show.
The hardest stunt for me to perform was the very first stunt. It was a stunt where I had to get out on the wing of an airplane, walk at 4,000 feet going 100 miles an hour. This was not easy. I only weigh 115 pounds. 100 miles of air coming toward me. I just thought I was going to fly away. But because it was the first one, it was the most challenging because I knew that started off everything and I knew I could do nothing but rely on God. The second stunt was putting my head into an aquarium of plums and water snakes and a boa constrictor. So that was also challenging. I was able to get 15 plums in 2 minutes. It was amazing. It was entirely God because I was very, very nervous and scared of the snakes. And the final stunt was running a race car off of the 3rd level of a parking garage. We had to land it into boxes on the 1st floor. And I actually prayed for God to take that car as far as humanly possible without hurting me. And after I had performed this stunt, the executive producer came in and asked me what I had done because he told me that I took the car further than the actual stuntmen did. The way I made it through being on Fear Factor was just praying to God every minute, every night, every day, before the stunt, after the stunt. I mean, I was in the back of the trailer every day and all the time just praying because I was so freaked out and so worried and so scared. But God was able to pull me through. They even made like all these jokes on the show. You may have heard about me praying too much and God's got to save her now. Well, he did. He really did come through for me. But I couldn't be concerned about people. I just had to be concerned about God.
That is the heart of a true disciple. Patricia serves in the full-time ministry with her husband and is grateful for the leader of the campus ministry, Jonathan Lucas, for inspiring her to even try out. By overcoming her fears, Patricia learned a valuable lesson.
The thing I learned the most from being on Fear Factor is that I can achieve the exact same goals and have the exact same faith as the great men and women that I've seen in the Bible. Their faith and their dreams took them far and made them do immeasurably more than they could imagine. Is that God or what?
On a much more serious note, many brothers and sisters around the world live daily with real fears that most of us can't even imagine. All the disciples in the Middle East are profiles in courage. You may remember Sammy from a previous edition of KNN. He was in prison for 1 year and beaten because of his faith. This year we heard that Sammy studied with more than 50 of his neighbors. 2 of the other churches in the Middle East, with just 30 disciples, had a worship service attendance of more than 80 people each. This is incredible when you consider the fact that the disciples in the Middle East cannot openly share their faith. Please continue to pray for God's peace to spread throughout this war-torn area of the world.
Dr. Mark and Vicki Timlin reported on the last KNN that they are transforming a bombed-out building into a hospital. God has blessed them even beyond that. The hospital is now open and is the first to be rebuilt since the latest war.
Well, we just had an opening for the hospital. It was a great event on the 15th of May, so about 8 days ago. And that was very exciting because I think since the last time that you saw it, a lot of work has been done day and night to try and get everything done. There's about 50 people working on it. We're working on 2 schools at the moment. One we started last year under the Taliban, and that got stopped during the bombing raids. And then we didn't have enough money to complete the school. It's for about 600 kids. And the British government stepped in to help us complete the school. And also the American military stepped in to help us with the furniture. So that's the schools. One of the schools is just about finished now, and so the kids are all in the classrooms. Second school, which the military are funding completely from the foundation up, that's just started.
And as far as the schools go, there's about 600.
Because people see a new school and they like it, so more and more of the kids start coming.
And then the other school that's being built, there's about 400 or 500 of those as well. So that's a mix of boys and girls. Someone said in Afghanistan that if you educate a boy, you educate a person, individual. If you educate a girl, you educate a nation.
You can help the Timlins through the Hope Worldwide website. The Timlins were among about 250 medical professionals from around the world who recently attended the Hope Health Corps in Long Beach, California. Led by Dr. Henry Kramer, they gathered to inspire and challenge each other in their spiritual lives. Triangle Church leaders Sam and Jerry Lang were asked to be the keynote speakers of the conference. Their Great Physicians ministry has grown from 20 to 50 disciples. Thousands of disciples serve the poor around the world on Global Outreach Day. The Berlin Church partnered with over 20 organizations to produce a Turkish children's festival that was attended by over 50,000 people. The 100 Hope volunteers organized 7-hour programs on 2 stages, distributed 1,500 balloons, and asked children to draw a picture of Grandpa, Grandma, and me.
Wunderbar, selbst Tiere, die hier sprechen können, lernst du auf unserer Reise kennen.
Das ist das Land von Eddie und Freddy, ein Traum der Märchen und Fantasie. Willst du mal besuchen, Eddie und Freddy? Zieh dir herein, Eddie und Freddy.
Recently, KNN sent out a message to the kingdom for more stories. Most of the stories came to us from the Central and South America world sector. God's modern-day movement began in Latin America with church plantings in Sao Paulo, Brazil, Mexico City, and Buenos Aires, Argentina. Even though the majority of the mission teams did not speak Portuguese or Spanish, God blessed their faith and courage. There are fantastic stories of changed hearts and lives, and God's Spirit has been working powerfully to add to His kingdom daily. Matthew chapter 13, verse 31 and 32 says, "The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, which a man took and planted in his fields. Though it is the smallest of all your seeds, yet when it grows, it is the largest of garden plants and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and perch in its branches." From 3 small churches in 1987, today the CSA world sector consists of 5 geographic sectors: Brazil, Mexico, South Cone, Central America, and Northern South America. The average monthly contribution for these countries is about $22 a person. Political and economic instability make the operating costs for these countries at least as high or higher than the United States, making it difficult for these churches to support themselves. Despite these challenges, the Latin American disciples have joyfully contributed to support the work of the churches.
Our first CSA story comes to us from the nation of Bolivia. The youngest church in Santa Cruz reflects a missionary spirit. In 1992, Dr. Henry Burgos, a Bolivian who was converted in Mexico City, had to return home due to several problems. Unfortunately, he lost contact with the church in Mexico. Consequently, he started having Bible discussion groups on his own and baptized several people. Upon hearing about the church in La Paz, he sought out the leadership there, and that small group of disciples received help. Today, 19 disciples in Santa Cruz have an attendance of about 100 on Sundays and are led by Leonardo and Maria Santana, who came from La Paz.
The Pillar Church in Colombia is in the capital city of Bogota. One of the most inspiring ministries there is the youth ministry led by Jose and Claudia Ortiz. When they accepted the challenge to lead this ministry, they had never studied the Bible with or even discipled a teen. But through faith and prayer, in their first year, the teen ministry doubled with 90 baptisms. Because of Jose and Claudia's incredible faith, they also began leading the campus ministries. They now lead a vibrant group of 460 disciples. One of the teens that represents this awesome ministry is Javier Andres Lobo. This 15-year-old is not only an excellent student, he was selected as one of his country's representatives for UNICEF, the widely known international organization devoted to helping children in impoverished countries.
Brazil is one of the largest countries in South America. Nearly 7,000 people attend the 7 churches in Brazil. In 1999, Alejandro and Kelly dos Reis moved to the capital city of Brasilia to lead a church for the very first time. Because they were on their own, they had to rely on faith and prayer.
Meu nome é Alexandre, estou aqui em Brasília, capital do Brasil. Cheguei aqui em 99 para liderar a igreja de Brasília e tem sido uma grande alegria poder estar aqui. Eu lembro dos primeiros 2 meses, foram meses bem desafiantes, foi muito difícil, porém Deus fez uma grande virada. No segundo mês, perseverando, orando, suplicando a Deus, eu pude convidar um amigo que se tornou um discípulo, Roberto. Roberto tem sido uma grande alegria na igreja. Deus tem usado a vida dele de diversas formas e ele agora vai poder compartilhar um pouco do que Deus tem feito na vida dele.
Aos irmãos o quanto Deus tem feito grandes coisas e continuará fazendo coisas muito maiores em Brasília. E a Deus seja dada toda a glória.
Our last CSA story comes from the great AMS ministry in Nashville, Tennessee. Dean and Cheryl Toscano are disciples who recently went through a major transition in life by coming out of the full-time ministry. They have set an incredible example simply by focusing on the basics of being disciples.
Back in November, Cheryl and I went through a major change in our life. After being in the ministry for 14 years, we got out of the ministry and went from leading a region in the Nashville church to being in another region, the AMS region of the Nashville church. One of the things that I really decided when we got out of the ministry is that I was not going to be a back road disciple, that I was really going to be in the fight, in the battle, having an impact. And I really believe that I'm a disciple first before I'm a leader, and I've been a disciple before I was a leader. And just getting back to being a disciple, sharing your faith, loving God, leading your family spiritually, and I think that's the most important thing above any kind of ministry role or leadership role you could have, is just really being a good disciple.
And I really believe that as we approach this new chapter in our lives, that we're just as valuable as we have ever been. I'm very grateful to God for leading me to Jeannie. She's a friend of mine that I met in aerobics class, and I invited her to church, and she came, and she never stopped coming. She has just been such a blessing in our lives. Their whole family has been a blessing. Her daughter and my daughter, our daughter, have become best friends, and to see her marriage changing, to see her husband coming to church, coming to Bible talk, just becoming, their family has become some of our best friends.
James Soto and his wife started coming to church after that and started studying the Bible. And in February, they both were baptized. And they're doing great. I mean, they are our best friends. Our families are great friends. Our Bible talk is really like a great big family. Our kids just have a blast together. A lot of the neighbors come out every week and look forward to it, actually call us wondering when Bible talk is going to be. And it's just been a great time for God to move in our lives after being in the ministry.
Back to the basics!
Our nation focus takes us back to the country of Papua New Guinea, where disciples visited the remote village of Gumani. Jonathan Harris, our correspondent down under, brings us this update.
It was great to be back in the mountains of Papua New Guinea to visit our brothers and sisters in the faith. The last time we were there in Gumani, we were excited to see the gospel being preached to all nations and then to all people everywhere. You may remember Joseph Carley, who was the pioneer to come down from the highlands to the big city of Port Moresby. Joseph had a desire to learn to make people true disciples. He returned to Gumani to baptize his wife and then many of his family. Mary Carley had a desire to help the other women in Gumani, but she had a problem. She couldn't read. She had become a Christian by simply hearing the message. Soon after their church began, Mary and Joseph went to the major city of Port Moresby again to get some encouragement and some discipling. While they were there for 2 months, they helped another couple become Christians, and then they returned to the highlands, their home. Mary was so excited that she pushed herself to read and learn how to write. Her husband gave her the basics, and she went on to help other women become Christians. So far, 8 women have decided to become disciples simply because God inspired Mary to want to preach.
Modern technology is bringing all of us together. The KNN stories are available on the KNN channel of the Up Cyber Down website.
It is important you send us your stories for KNN. To encourage this point, we would like to announce another KNN video contest. Please send us your inspirational video story. Here are the requirements. Our theme, Unsung Heroes. Length should be 1 to 3 minutes. Send in the best format available to you. Please include your name, phone and address, and email address. Unfortunately, we cannot return the materials. The winner will receive a KNN shirt and hat, copies of all the KNN dramatic videos, and the latest KNN video. Please send it to 3731 Wilshire Boulevard, Suite 850, Los Angeles, California, 90010.
Amazing to think that KNN is now 8 years old. Some of you have seen all 42 editions, and some of you are viewing KNN for the very first time. Nonetheless, God has done so many incredible things in our generation, more than we can count. As a kingdom, we are at a spiritual crossroad. The leadership has changed. We're all aging. Some of us are more concerned about the world than about dreaming for God's kingdom. God is testing us. What are we going to do with all the convictions that God has taught us over the last 20 years of our movement's history? With all of life's challenges and distractions, we must remember God. We must remember the mission He has for our life. We must remember the purpose of the church, to seek and save the lost, to proclaim the manifold wisdom of God. Now that the 6-year plan is done, where do we go from here? God simply wants all of us to be called back to the basics. We need to remember how we got here. It was God, and it will always be God. Many of us will never be highlighted on KNN. But remember that our individual lives for God makes an eternal difference. Dream that your life will make a continued impact with your family, with your neighbors, with your coworkers, with people you meet for the very first time. Brothers and sisters, let's go into battle lifting up the Lord. Let's go into battle lifting up His Word. Let's go into battle winning as many souls as possible. This is Anthony Galang signing off for KNN, the best news you'll ever see.
One by one and soul by soul, to all the world, to every nation. One by one and soul by soul, to all the world, to every nation. One by one and soul by soul, to all the world, to every nation. One by one and soul by soul,